Bestätigt. Heidelberg übernimmt verbindlich das Modul Grundlagen des Judentums. Das Land Thüringen engagiert sich finanziell und der Freistaat hat den Studiengang außerdem in das Curriculum aufgenommen und sichert damit seine künftige Existenz. Wie der Studiengang Jüdische Sozialarbeit entstand und was ihn ausmacht, das berichtet Constanze Baumgart.
Es gab vor 1933 einfach jüdische Sozialarbeit in Deutschland, die extrem fortschrittlich und engagiert gewesen ist. Und da ist es natürlich alles verschwunden. Und ich finde das einfach schön, wenn in unserem Kontext es wieder entsteht und weiter gepflegt wird und es diesen Studiengang einfach gibt.
Judith Tarasi ist Kunsttherapeutin. Sie leitet den Inklusionsfachbereich Gescher mit dem Kunstatelier Omanut, Einrichtung der Zentralwohlfahrtsstelle der Juden in Deutschland. Mit Mitte 50 entschied sich Tarasi, ihre langjährige praktische Berufserfahrung um ein theoretisches Fundament zu ergänzen und schrieb sich für das Bachelorstudium Jüdische Sozialarbeit ein. Aufgebaut wurde dieser Studiengang zu Beginn der 90er Jahre des letzten Jahrhunderts. Nach dem Epochenumbruch 1989-90 hatten rund 200.000 russischsprachige Juden ihre Heimat verlassen, um nach Deutschland zu emigrieren. Der Soziologe Doron Kiesel ist der geistige Vater des Studiengangs.
Die Idee liegt schon einige Jahre zurück, in der Zeit, als ich eine Professur in Erfurt hatte und mir auffiel, dass doch eine ganze Reihe von jüdischen sogenannten Kontingentflüchtlingen, hieß es früher, sind also Migrantinnen und Migranten aus der ehemaligen Sowjetunion, die kamen hierher und waren ausgesprochen gut ausgebildet, aber deren Abschlüsse wurden hier in der Regel nicht anerkannt. Und das schien mir ziemlich absurd zu sein, dass man Menschen einlädt und zugleich aber ihre Kompetenzen nicht nutzt.
Kiesel, der heute wissenschaftlicher Direktor der Bildungsabteilung des Zentralrats der Juden in Deutschland ist, wollte das ändern.
Meine Gespräche mit der damaligen Ministerpräsidentin Lieberknecht haben dazu geführt, dass wir uns überlegt haben, einen Studiengang für diese Gruppe von Menschen zu implementieren. Wir nannten es jüdische Sozialarbeit.
Das Ziel war ein doppeltes. Zum einen sollte es den Migrantinnen und Migranten den Weg in die akademische Welt öffnen. Zum anderen hatten und haben die jüdischen Gemeinden großen Bedarf, jüdische Sozialarbeitende einzustellen,
die dann die jeweiligen vielfältigen sozialen und Integrationsaufgaben in den Gemeinden, in den neu gegründeten Gemeinden auch entsprechend aufgreifen und realisieren können.
Die Zuwanderung aus der ehemaligen Sowjetunion führte dazu, dass neue Gemeinden gegründet wurden oder brachliegende Gemeinden sich mit neuem Leben füllten. Eine wichtige Aufgabe dort ist es, die soziale Integration von Neuankömmlingen zu fördern. Erfahrungsgemäß ist dies ein langwieriger und über die eingewanderte Generation hinausgehender Prozess. Damit er gelingt, wird insbesondere die Expertise von Sozialarbeitenden benötigt. Der Studiengang umfasst mehrere Einheiten, die online und in Präsenz vermittelt werden. Die Module zu klassischen Themen der Sozialarbeit übernimmt die Fachhochschule Erfurt. Für das Modul Grundlagen des Judentums trägt die Hochschule für jüdische Studien Heidelberg die Verantwortung. Jüdische Geschichte, Philosophie, Religionspädagogik und Ethik, jüdische Seelsorge und Lebensbegleitung, aber auch Themen wie der Nahostkonflikt und modernes Hebräisch gehören dazu.
Vieles, was Juden in Deutschland interessiert und Teil auch des Selbstverständnisses ausmacht. Das heißt, wir sind bemüht, vieles einfließen zu lassen, neben dem klassischen Moment der sozialen Arbeit auch die jüdischen Rahmenbedingungen.
Auch die Leiterin des Jugendzentrums der jüdischen Gemeinde Berlin, Shelley Schlafstein, ist Absolventin. Sie setzt das Erlernte an vielen Stellen in ihrer praktischen Arbeit um.
Wir hatten die Ukraine-Krise, wo viele jüdische Gemeinden, die Flüchtlinge mit aufgenommen haben, wo wir mit den Flüchtlingen gearbeitet haben. Und das war wirklich etwas, was ich mitgenommen habe aus dem Studium.
Just taking anything that we have, you know.
But we've put ourselves in a weak position, haven't we?
Well, yeah, we are a very weak position now, but this is where we have to try and make ties elsewhere. And
so on balance, you think he's right to go?
I think go have a chat and see if it's going to work or not. I mean, don't just say yes to everything and just go with it. Don't get stuck into any deal that we don't want to be in. But
you're not uncomfortable about it.
No, but I think people need to be vigilant with it and obviously not start importing things that are going to endanger us or start tracking us or anything turn us into a fascist state or anything like that, really.
Okay, thanks very much, Ross. I want to make time for Danny quickly in Camden. Hello, Danny.
Oh, hello, Sheila. Very, very quickly, I just think China has a terrible history for human rights amongst their own people, and I don't think Britain should be. I don't think Britain should ignore that.
I mean, we do business with a lot of countries or other countries that have terrible human rights records, don't we?
Well, that's the problem. We shouldn't deal with these people who have got a terrible human rights record for, imprisoning their own people, killing journalists, and the rest of it. And we shouldn't be friendly with them. We shouldn't. That's all I have to say on that matter.
Do you not think there's any pragmatic reason for internationally, globally, diplomatically for keeping a conversation alive? It's not the same as friends, or colleagues that you fall out with. It's important to keep the conversation alive sometimes.
Well, for economic business reason, I can see the sense of that, but we should not ignore their history and their past with regards to human rights and what they've done to their own people. We shouldn't ignore that for the sake of, a multi-million-pound deal. And we're forgetting the people that China have imprisoned in their own country. We should never forget that.
Thank you very much, Danny. That's Danny in Camden. Coming up after the news at 3, I want to return actually to the story of Liam Payne, but talk more generally about addiction. More and more people who knew him, who worked with him, people who were close to him have come out and spoken about his troubles with drink and drugs and the age he was, very young when he started out in the music industry. Sharon Osbourne saying that the industry, and she said, we let you down, is what she said about him. I'll read more of her statement. But is that to misunderstand addiction, to think that it's the music industry that did it, not the addiction that did it?
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 3 o'clock, Hamas has confirmed the death of their leader Yahya Sinwar, but said it will only strengthen them. He was killed in an Israeli attack yesterday. Khalil al-Hayya also said no Israeli hostages will be released until Israeli forces withdraw from Gaza. Rachel Cummings from Save the Children's just got back from the enclave. She told LBC what it's like on the ground.
People are barely surviving. There is imminent famine. People are desperate for food, for water, for any type of shelter. some of the children that we're working with have been displaced and forcibly evacuated from their homes 8-9 times.
Well, more than 100 Labour councillors have written to Sir Keir Starmer to call for an immediate arms embargo on Israel. The letter, seen exclusively by LBC, was coordinated by the Labour Muslim Network. LBC's reporter Henry Riley has more details.
This has been signed by 114 Labour Muslim councillors from across the UK. They are saying the government has a moral obligation to act now and are calling for Sir Keir Starmer to suspend all arms sales to Israel, warning that international humanitarian law could be jeopardised as a result. And there are various local Labour politicians who have signed this, including the deputy leader of councils across the UK. You've got the mayor of Rochdale and also a member of Labour's National Executive Committee.
The police watchdog's investigating after a woman and her unborn baby died in a collision with an unmarked police car in south-east London. It happened yesterday evening on the A20 in Eltham. It's not known if the officers were responding to an emergency at the time. A schoolboy who attacked 2 sleeping students and a teacher with a hammer at their Devon boarding school has been detained for life. The 16-year-old admitted the assaults at Blundell School in Tiverton in June last year. He'll serve a minimum of 12 years. Detective Superintendent James Dowler spoke outside court.
These assaults were brutal and savage. The offender hammered down repeated blows on each victim's head, causing life-threatening injuries. I have no doubt that his intent was to kill his fellow pupils. After being arrested, the offender denied having any conscious knowledge of the attack and at court claimed that he was sleepwalking. This was a defence which the jury found not to be true.
And Alex Salmond's coffin has arrived at Aberdeen Airport. Scotland's former First Minister died after suffering a heart attack at a conference in North Macedonia on Saturday. In the city, a short time ago, the FTSE 100 was trading down 42 points at 83.42. The pound buys $1.30 and €1.20. LBC weather this afternoon should be dry with some sunny spells for the southeast. Cloud and rain elsewhere. Highs of 17 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Jenny Barsby.
Is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Sheila Fogarty.
Hello there, good afternoon to you. You remember yesterday when we were talking, I was talking with our correspondent Sarah Louise Robertson about the death of Liam Payne in a hotel, from a hotel room balcony in Buenos Aires. She talked about singers like Rebecca Ferguson, who began her success through, or her very large success through X Factor. But she relatively quickly found the music industry too much and was open and public about it, and says that she suffered for that openness. In her statement about Liam Payne's death, she talked about the way the industry, chews young people up and spits them out, as I think she put it, and if not in those words, then that was the sentiment of what she was saying, and that they're not protected from the worst excesses of the industry. I don't know the music industry from the inside in any way, in any serious way. If you do, it would be great to hear from you during this conversation, because what I want to get into really is whether we misunderstand addiction if we think the context of where you are materially contributes to your ultimate demise from addiction. David Yellen, former editor of the Sun newspaper, a recovering addict himself, and talks very openly and I think really eloquently about addiction, said on Twitter this morning, on X this morning, posted a front page of one of the papers saying, your beautiful baby with Cheryl, baby bear with Cheryl, who's now a young boy, couldn't save you. And David Yellen was saying that this is to misunderstand addiction. And while Liam's poor family deal with the repatriation of his body, deal with the investigation into his death and all the grief and horror and sadness that they'll be dealing with, I thought it was a good time to talk about addiction. Not least because we've discussed what's potentially coming down the line in the budget, and we've been talking about what austerity did to our services, and I deliberately included in that list of services the other day when we were talking about it, drug and alcohol services, because they've taken a massive hit, and the number of people who have died because of austerity will include those who couldn't get the right help for their drug and alcohol addiction. So what might Liam's horribly early death and any insights that we're able to get from his addiction that perhaps his family down the line might share or friends down the line might share, what insights we're able to get from it. 0345 6060973 is the number to call. You can send a WhatsApp message on that number and you can text 84850. Dr. Ian Hamilton joins me, a professor in addiction and mental health at the University of York. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Sheila.
Give me your initial thoughts on what you've been hearing about Liam Payne's relationship to addiction, because it seems to be in the second or third paragraph or even the first paragraphs of most of the articles about him.
Well, it's obviously desperately sad, for someone of any age to lose their life to drugs, but I guess it has a sharper poignancy when it's someone who's so young. But sadly, in the UK, we have one of the highest rates of drug-related deaths in Europe, and that shows no signs of reversing. So it is I'd have to agree with what you were saying earlier. Austerity meant that there was really savage cuts to treatment, and of course, if you end up with a problem, treatment is what you need, support is what you need. But if it's not there, then where do you go? So I appreciate someone like Liam perhaps has more access to those kind of resources in terms of private treatment than you or I might have, but nonetheless, Liam represents, doesn't he, a growing number of young men and young women who are losing their life to addiction.
But even those who do have access, as you say, as he would, that's no guarantee of success, as it's no guarantee of ending up in a position where you're able to manage that addiction. I remember doing years ago now an outside broadcast when I was at the BBC. I did an outside broadcast in a drug rehabilitation centre. So we spent the morning with the people there, and we'd met them the night before. We'd met those who we were going to speak to the night before, so that everybody was, relaxed and calm, not feeling too nervous or pressured. And at the end of the program, a young man who was in there for drug and alcohol addiction, who I'd spoken to in the program, he came up to me with a little piece of paper, and it was obviously a little printout thing that they're given, just a strip of paper. And he said, "Would you sign this for me?" And I said, "Yeah, what is it?" And he said, "It's every day we are asked to have somebody witness a good moment that we've had this day. And I'd like you to witness this good moment that I've had, And he was probably in his early 30s, similar to Liam Payne actually, in his early 30s, tall, good-looking guy, tall guy. And I said, "Oh, I'd be delighted to. I'm so glad that's how you've experienced this program, And I gave him a hug, and he gave me a hug back, and I left the place much more conscious of how fragile a person's recovery is. I just thought that lad really needed this. To me, it was just another. I mean, the people mattered to me, but for me, it was just another working day. It was,
of course.
The program went well. I was pleased it did, but that's all it was for me. For him, it was a huge success. This thing he'd been nervous of, whatever ghosts he had in his mind about his abilities or his likability or whatever it was, I don't know. But something about it was enormous to him. And I thought to myself, this is such a fragile state to find yourself in. And that's the truth of it, isn't it? The fragility of recovery.
It is, and that's a really lovely story, Sheila. And, what I'm struck by with that is when we have contact with people who have problems with drugs, we begin to kind of dilute some of our prejudice and preconceptions.
Or ignorance as well.
You what, sorry?
Ignorance.
Yes, that's it. And I think it's really interesting that we tend to other, as it were, people with addiction. It's something that's at arm's length. And actually, like Liam, there are people around who you just don't know what they're experiencing, what they're suffering, the kind of pain they're going through, because they tend to cover it up very well. And if you're in denial, which many people with addiction are, And if you're denying it to yourself, then you quite often are able to function actually quite well to the outside world. And we just don't know what people are experiencing. But you're absolutely right. Recovery is very fragile. The research suggests that it takes 8 or 9 treatment cycles before you reach recovery. So that's 8 or 9 relapses before you reach that end point of being abstinent. So it's something you've clearly, as a family member or someone that you love, stretches your patience beyond belief.
And this idea, it was interesting how David Yelland responded to the tabloid newspaper suggestion that not even the love of Cheryl and your baby could save you. It's not their job to save them, is it? And of course, when you love someone, that's an easy thing to reach for. But I love you, we can make this wonderful. That's, again, that misunderstands addiction, doesn't it?
It does completely. And, addiction is all-consuming. Is your number one priority. And that's not to say that you don't love your partner or your children. And I think one of the hardest things actually is for families, for those who are watching and are so powerless. And that's another aspect of treatment or support really that is failing at the moment, is to support those families, support those loved ones, who, even those who are open-minded and, as it were, warm to the idea of the problems with addiction, just don't get the support they need. And, it must be absolutely crushing and frustrating. If you imagine it takes 8 or 9 relapses, I mean, it's beyond my perception and my ability to understand how frustrating that must be.
And I remember hearing after Amy Winehouse had died, I remember a good friend of hers from childhood, being interviewed and saying that when she'd won the first Grammy, and there was a small celebration afterwards, and she was not drinking at the time. Small celebration afterwards, and her friend rang to say congratulations, you're having a great time, and she said, yeah, I suppose so. She said, but be better with a drink, and she was still hankering, and it was, and if you think about, everybody has gifts in their life and blessings in their life, but this was a woman ostensibly on the top of the world, wasn't it? And yet she was struggling still with that. That drink.
And I think it's really hard. I think there's an added layer for people like Liam and Amy, in the sense that you and I, Sheila, I guess, have the luxury of being ill in private, or struggling in private. They just don't have that. Everything is examined. Everything is very public.
That's interesting you say that. Does that make recovery less likely in your view?
I think it makes it incredibly difficult. I think recovery and the journey towards recovery for anyone is, difficult. It takes a long time. But if you add on to that the public scrutiny, and it's not just scrutiny, is it? It can be quite savage criticism, I think, at times. And people just need to think, a bit like Robbie Williams has said today, people need to think before they start commenting on Liam and others. A bit like you highlighted with the point about didn't you love his family enough, essentially. It's quite a cruel comment, really, isn't it?
It's interesting. I didn't see Robbie Williams' tweet. He's been very open and clear about how tough it was for him as well, hasn't he? And just a final thought from you on the music industry, because whatever your job is, I think the point you make about private pain and public pain is an important one, but whatever your job is, whatever your life is like, if you are addicted, you are addicted. It's still going to be the central theme of your day and your week and your month and your life. Is the music industry to be criticised here?
I think that there is some fair criticism to be made. It's a brutal industry, isn't it? And media generally, I think. I'm fortunate. I have some form of tenure in my occupation. I have the luxury of knowing that I would only have to do something really bad to lose my job. I don't have to be popular, thank God, because I'm not. But do you know what I mean? On a more serious note, if you're relying on...
You've got a sense of being tethered to something.
Yes, that's it. And I have security. Whereas I don't think Liam had that. And I think there was some suggestion, actually, that his record label was about to drop him or something like that.
Reportedly,
Yeah, that's it. I mean, either way, it doesn't really matter. It just shows, doesn't it? It signifies and symbolises how precarious the whole thing is. So you may have achieved success, but then where did your next success come from? And the success after that. So you're constantly pursuing something that actually is very, very precarious and fragile.
And that likability thing, to be likeable or at all times. I mean, none of us is likeable at all times.
No, of course
not. You should see me on a train most days. Thank you. Great to talk to you, Dr. Ian Hamilton. Thank you. Professor in Addiction and Mental Health at the University of York. Your calls in just a few moments. It's 16 minutes past 3.
This is LBC.
Curtains drawn at dawn. You wake, and so does your potential. You don't let it snooze or sit around. You act on it. Run with it. Past the safety of routine and familiarity to somewhere new. Because anything is possible if you choose to make it happen.
Whether you're growing your business, switching careers, or just starting out, make the most of your potential. It all starts with skills. Search Skills for Life.
The big paint event is now on at Wickes. Save on Dulux standard 2.5 litre coloured emulsion. Was £22, now £15. Shop now. Terms apply.
We asked Co-op members what they wanted most from our relationship. Did they want lower prices on milk, bread, eggs, or beans? And they chose... Members always get our lowest prices. Co-op, owned by you, right by you.
Selected products, Co-op Group membership required, £1 joining fees, co-op.co.uk/town/membership.
32 minutes. Closer to a romantic break. 32 minutes. Closer to your week on the beach. 32 minutes. Closer to that vital overseas meeting. Just 32 minutes from London St Pancras to Luton Airport on the Luton Airport Express. No traffic, no stress. All from just £10. Let's go. Get tickets at lutonairportexpress.co.uk.
I never liked her anyway.
He's clearly a narcissist.
Well, she stopped. She's seeing the kids.
He negotiates for a living. Lawyer up and protect yourself.
We get it. You mean well. But when someone you love gets divorced, saying these things does more harm than good. That's where we come in. Amicable is a legal service that makes divorce kinder and simpler. No demonising, no aggression, just better outcomes for everyone. Amicable.co.uk. Divorce made kinder.
Sheila Fogarty on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
I think as much as anything, I'm trying to get a sense of how the environment you live and work in affects you if you're trying to battle addiction, trying to recover from addiction. Does the space you operate in, at work, at home, does that make it easier or harder to get out of and to recover from? This text from Ollie says, I became an alcoholic while working in West Africa due to stress and loneliness. I ended up drinking whiskey in the morning and taking strong drugs. I'm so embarrassed and still not recovered. Embarrassment must be, you shouldn't be, but you're obviously feeling that. Every single day is a battle in my mind. I hide it from everybody in my family. Addiction is not something anybody chooses. I make bad decisions all the time, and I wish there was someone who could help me. I feel so alone, says Ollie, because I'm not honest about it. People don't understand how easy it is to fall into addiction. I don't know how much more I can put up with. I'm so sorry to hear that, Ollie. Thank you for talking about this. You should call. We'll put some numbers up, and you should call someone. We'll put the Samaritans up, and we'll get some drug charities up as well. But you should call someone. It is so common. There should be no shame. There should be no embarrassment. There should be no, desire to be the perfect person. It's just nobody's the perfect person. Nobody lives a life and makes no mistakes and makes wrong choices. So you shouldn't be embarrassed. Neil is called from Bloxwich in the Black Country. Did I pronounce that right, Neil?
You did, yeah.
Thank you. What did you want to say now?
I work as a tour manager in the music industry, so I've been quite up close and personal with a lot of these situations. Pardon me if this turns into a stream of consciousness, feel free to tell me to shut up.
No, you fire away, take your time.
The first thing that jumps into my head is the pressure that these people are under, and a lot of people scoff at it because obviously they're living a dream, and they are to a certain extent, as am I to a certain extent, or to a huge extent right now. But that, an effect that people don't realise that has, is it limits the number of people that you can talk to about it. Because if you're in like the number one boy band in the world, or have got this massive solo career or a successful band, most of your friends are probably going to be from a similar background, so they probably have the same ambitions as you did, and you happened to make it, they didn't. So you can't call on them and say, I've had a terrible day, I need someone to talk to, because they know in the back of their mind that part of their reaction is going to be, oh come on, you must be joking, you live in a dream, you can't have any problems, etc.
But do you think that view is prevalent? Do you think people really think if you've got money and a great job, you're less likely to be addicted? Or if you're addicted, you can get over it more quickly? Or why are you addicted? Just because you've got money and a job and a nice partner and a baby?
Yeah, I mean, the addiction part of it is maybe not separate, because obviously that's what you're talking about. But in terms of like, it will make, addiction tends to come from, desperation, boredom, someone's already said, frustration, pressure, stress, all that kind of thing. And that can be exacerbated by just having a lack of people that you can talk to about it. I think as well, addiction within, I'm talking specifically the music industry, but probably the entertainment industry generally, I think, this is just my own personal view, but it feels like there's two main reasons or two huge contributing factors to people becoming addicted or becoming more likely to be addicted. One of those is boredom, because as exciting as it might look on the TV, there's an awful lot of travelling and an awful lot of sitting around doing nothing.
Yeah, and he spoke about loneliness, didn't he?
Oh, absolutely. And you can be, generally you're spending weeks on end in a tour bus with 15 other people. So there's a lot of people around, but it can also feel incredibly lonely because there's no, family. If they've got, kids and a partner at home, then it's not those that they're seeing a lot, so they feel very distant from them. And there's just so many factors that just exacerbate the whole thing, including industry pressures as well. I personally think that these people don't have enough time off, and again, people can scoff at it and say, oh, they're living the dream, and it seems contradictory to say that you're sitting around being bored and also working too much. But you have got labels and management, etc., who are piling the pressure on.
Travel is a killer, isn't it? Traveling, jet lag, always expecting to be on and sparkly, always being told that you're a financial asset first and last kind of thing, as opposed to a human being first and last.
Exactly. I mean, all of those things. And I don't mean to sound too cynical when I talk about management labels, because the reality of it is they're not with them all day long. They don't see the reality of it. And the better ones will listen to us when we turn around and say they have not got the mental capacity to do this now. Stop adding extra press and PR and in-store shows and signing sessions and what have you. Yeah. But some of them don't listen.
And when you raise that, or when you've seen that, has it been young people mostly?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm only in my early 40s now, but I'm generally looking after people who are 10, sometimes 20 years younger than I am. So you've got that aspect of it there as well. That not necessarily they're immature, but they're just not as experienced.
No, it's young. 20 is young, isn't it? 20 is young. Yeah. I mean, I suppose we could all look back on the beginning of our working life, say, at 20, and let's not forget the beginning of his working life was age 16, at a very intense level, wasn't it? But I'm sure we've all had moments where we thought, oh God, this feels a bit much. Oh God, I'm having to be very brave here every day, that kind of thing. But we do that in a mostly private way, don't we? In a very small setting. But if you're doing it with the world's glare looking at you the whole time. It must be very challenging and alarming.
100%, yeah, because, I mean, you were talking earlier about his record label that may have been about to drop it. And we've all probably experienced losing jobs or, losing roles within a job, etc. Yeah. And that's bad. But imagine knowing that tomorrow the whole world's press are going to be reporting that you're a failure and that you're not good enough and all the rest of it.
And that you're not Harry Styles. Who wrote a beautiful, loving tribute to Liam. I'm not saying Harry thinks that. I'm saying that's the kind of mean reporting you would see, isn't it?
Absolutely, 100%.
Well, thank you. It's really good to hear from somebody inside the music industry. Thank you, Neil. Neil calling from Blockswitch. Andy in Southampton. Hello, Andy.
Hiya. All right.
Yes.
Yeah. First time caller, a little bit nervous. I just wanted to potentially paint a slightly different picture on what we're talking about in terms of what addiction might look like in some people's eyes. We've obviously, talked about the music industry and younger people and sort of high-powered, high-pressured jobs and triggers, but just want to potentially paint a different picture. I'm 47 years old. I had a fantastic upbringing. I've got a lovely family around me. Everything's great. I've got a good job. It's not very high pressured, yet I am a terrible cocaine addict. And it just gets you, and it's just incredibly difficult to explain to somebody that you can be in this much trouble. And the highs and lows that I go through are unbelievable. And it's probably been in the last 2 to 3 years that it's heightened. But prior to the age of, say, 43, 44, I wouldn't even have dreamt of touching drugs, not even marijuana. I don't smoke, I don't drink. I don't really know, really. I think lockdown had a little bit to do with it, for me personally, on my journey. Very, very bored through lockdown. My partner and I won't bring her into this conversation because that would be unfair. But my partner and I were very bored through lockdown, and various things kind of came up, and sitting at home and doing stuff became common, and then more common, and then more common, and then everything went back to normal, or somewhat normal.
By doing stuff, do you mean taking cocaine?
I mean, yeah, taking cocaine and sort of just drinking at home and some...
But why cocaine after being so anti-drug? Why suddenly that's quite a reach. It's like being teetotal till you're 45 and then saying, I need a bottle of whiskey every day.
The only thing I can put it down to, and again, I've got to be mindful of the audience, you know what I mean, but I've got an addictive personality, and there's other things that I'm addicted to that I probably won't mention on the radio, but addiction comes from wanting the next better thing, I think, for me anyway. Alcohol, marijuana, you take drugs and then you want something that might give you something more, and then something more, and that's what addiction can do to you, I think. I don't know if other people agree.
It does make sense. And have you sought help at all?
Yeah, so this is the other point, really. I got to a point, I don't know, a few months ago, where I went along to a charity near me, and it was probably one of the most demoralising moments of my life, having to do a P test, to determine if I still had any drugs in my system. At the age of sort of 46, you don't really want to be doing that. I'm a parent, I'm a grandparent, and it was just demoralising. You think, well, that's it. I'm never doing this again. This is it now. And then I went along to some meetings, anonymous meetings, which were fantastic. I went for 4 weeks and I was clean for 4 weeks. And then the complacency kicked in. I thought, I don't need to come anymore. I'm done. And then literally spent the last few months spending, £200, £300, £400 a week on drugs. I found myself doing all sorts of things just to kind of raise money or hide it, and it's been horrendous. And I went back for the first time last Monday, and I'm sat with people in the group, and again, it's called anonymous for a reason. so obviously not going to bring anybody's story up. But it's harrowing, absolutely harrowing, what some people have gone through in their life. And I would suggest to anybody, if you think you haven't got an addiction, or you think you're almost borderline, got a habit, go to one of these meetings. It could be preventative for you, rather than, when it's too late. There's so many people that it's too late for, almost.
We use the language, don't we, of being in the grip of addiction.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that grip is getting you intermittently, and it sounds like the people you were listening to at that meeting, that horrendous thing you were seeing was them in full grip of it. Sorry, other way around, it in full grip of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And you need to hear it sometimes. You need to hear it to hammer it home. I'm yet again find myself a week on, determined not to do it again, ever. I'm determined. I've joined the gym, I've been to the gym 4 times this week, for example, and it's taken the place, and it's about a dopamine fix.
Don't set yourself up to fail, though, Andy.
No, I know.
You're only human. Keep at it, but don't set yourself up to fail. This is the week I will not make another mistake in my life. Well, you will.
Absolutely.
We all do. But you've gone a long way, haven't you? You've accepted you've got a problem.
Yes.
You've realised you've had a setback. I hope you don't have to have 8 or 9 setbacks, as guest was saying. But yeah, and I think what your experience says is that complacency has no place in this.
Absolutely, 100%. And I think, anybody, even if a family recognises that somebody else in their family or a loved one is, in some kind of danger or got a habit, you've got to talk. You have to talk. You can't hide it. Like you said, there is shame in it, but there's no shame in it. It's you have to. You've got to.
Well, the thing is, if you tell somebody about it and they react by giving you shame, they're not the person to help you. They're not the person to support you. Yeah, find someone else. Yeah. Andy, thank you, and I really wish you well with it. Andy in Southampton, thank you for being so honest with us. It's 3:33. Let's get some headlines from Jenny Barsby.
A top Hamas political official has said the death of the group's leader will only serve to strengthen them. Yahya Sinwar was killed in an Israeli attack yesterday. A former Greater Manchester police officer has been jailed for 19 years this afternoon after being found guilty of misconduct and supplying Class A drugs. Andrew Talbot stole 4 kilos of cocaine from an evidence store over a 2-year period. And a former captain of the Fulham women's football team claims she was sexually assaulted by Mohammed Al-Fayed. Lawyers say they're representing 4 former players with allegations against the late billionaire. LBC weather, a band of heavy rain moving from west to east this evening and overnight with lows of 6 degrees.
This is LBC.
Nobody asks to have a lifetime of memories slowly erased. Nobody asks to have a loved one not recognise them. Nobody asks to feel lonely or confused. But today, you could change this. By leaving a gift in your will to Alzheimer's Society, you'll help fund life-changing support, vital campaigning, and groundbreaking research to tackle Britain's biggest killer. Discover the impact your gift can make. Search Alzheimer's Society Wills.
31 years ago, the World Wide Web was introduced, the National Lottery launched, and Darwood and Tanner began making people smile. And whilst things have changed a lot since then, Darwood and Tanner's mission to provide the very best dental care through the very latest technology is still at the heart of everything they do. For our most comprehensive, tailored and complete dental implant, root canal and gum disease treatments, visit darwoodandtanner.co.uk.
Oh, that's Jamal from number 5, master of bin day in the car park. Our group chat would be lost without him. Oh, more Fox 5 videos. It's sweet and constant. I mean, what kind of a phone contract is he on?
Well, here at Tesco Mobile, we've frozen the price of his contract with club card prices, so he doesn't have to worry about his price going up. Shall I sign you up too?
Go on then.
It pays to be connected. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/frozen prices.
When Andre sold his car on finance with Motorway, he got more money. Ooh! He then put that extra money into tickets to follow his team around the country. Come on, lads! Selling on Motorway was completely stress-free, which is more than I can say about being a supporter of... Yes! sell your car the more money way. We're 84% of sellers sold for more. Motorway. Validated against 2 independent sources. Visit motorway.co.uk/claims.
Does your printer need ink?
In a hurry?
Just think.
Cartridgepeople.com.
For unbeatable prices, Cartridge People.
Printing
sorted. See online for our price promise.
Sheila Fogarty on LBC. Listen on your smart speaker. Just say, play LBC.
Now, Sadiq Khan. Hooray for Sadiq Khan on this story that Charlotte Lynch, LBC's reporter, is going to share with us. The Mayor of London has told teachers that combating what he called the pernicious influence of misogynists such as Andrew Tate in primary schools, so as young as primary schools, is as vital as teaching children about equality and respect, as vital as maths. I'm minded to agree with him given the evidence, the growing evidence, Charlotte, that we're seeing of how almost a kind of radicalisation of young boys is taking place.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you mentioned the likes of Andrew Tate, and you'll hear Sadiq Khan in a moment, talk about statistics that show that 1 in 10 children aged 9 have seen some sort of pornography online already by the time they're 9 years old. Incredibly young. So not only has he written to every school across the capital, so it's not just primary schools that will benefit from this, although it will start that early in year 6. Not only is he writing to them to stress the importance, but also they're all being provided this toolkit, these workshops, so they're actually going to be given lessons in, essentially from that age, just being kind to each other, how to respect each other. So teachers across the capital are all being trained, they're being given the resources to do it, and I've been at one of them this morning with the Mayor, Seven Sisters Primary School in North London. That first workshop was taught earlier. So these children just 9 and 10 years old, and already they're really taking it on board. Have a listen.
We've been learning about today the positivity of a healthy relationship and how to spot red flags in a negative relationship.
And we learned that we have to be nice to everybody, no matter who they are.
We got to learn how to be more confident and say no bravely, and if we don't feel comfortable, we should go and tell an adult.
So, of course, they're really taking it on board already.
It says we have to be nice to everybody, no matter who they are.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'll be teaching my 7-year-olds that.
There's certain people, of course. But, and it's hoped that with, lessons like this, actually, it won't produce nasty adults or nasty older children.
The thing is, you've got to give them the words. You've got to give them the words to say, this made me uncomfortable, that person shouldn't have spoken to me like this, I don't like being treated like this.
Yeah.
You've got to give them the words.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what I saw them doing today. So this workshop, they were all sitting around in a circle, and it was almost like a role play. It is part of this. It's just one part of this, where somebody pretends almost to be the bully and says something not very nice to someone, or, they pretend they're in a situation that they're not happy with, and they're taught then, how they get out of it, all the types of things that they can say, like you just said, I'm not comfortable with this, to stop it, and then, of course, when appropriate, leave, go and speak to an adult when to tell an adult about that situation as well. So it seems like a really good thing. £1 million being put into this as well, to go into schools across the country. So Sadiq Khan told me why he is taking this so seriously.
It should worry all of us that 1 out of 3 young people have a positive view of self-proclaimed misogynist Andrew Tate. It should worry all of us that 1 out of 10 9-year-olds has seen pornography on the internet. It should worry all of us that young people are bombarded with negative images and stereotypes of girls and what is a healthy relationship. So what we're trying to do is to make sure, working with great teachers and with educational experts like Tender, we give young people the tools how to respond to this sort of negative stereotypes, but also the confidence to treat each other with respect and with dignity.
And we've heard from the Mayor of London several times now, and indeed the Prime Minister as well, Sir Keir Starmer, about the importance of education, in the toolkit of tackling this growing problem of violence against women and girls. So, of course, it's brilliant that this is being rolled out across the capital, or a lot of people will think it's brilliant, but of course we know this is a countrywide issue, and many campaigners, Ashley James, the broadcaster, was there today, we know that she's been outspoken on this issue. She was supportive of it, she herself bringing up young children in London, thrilled that they're going to be, getting these lessons, but she made the crucial point, what about children in other parts of the country as well, where it's just as bad, if not worse. So, she really wants to see Bridget Phillips and the Education Secretary actually take this on and roll it out more nationwide as well.
I mean, every time we talk about it, whether it's children or if we talk about coercive control in relationships with adults as well, what comes through is how many adult people, men and women, who are on the receiving end of coercive behaviour, controlling behaviour, are often very, it's a kind of paralysis at first that they get. They're not sure what they're witnessing. Is this just someone having a bad day, or is this somebody trying to... And before you know it, you're in deep with somebody who's controlling you, and friends have gone away, or family are visiting less, or whatever, however it works out. And that's why I think it's so important that all of us, whatever age we are, but certainly let's start early, give people the language to know that what a respectful, healthy, kind relationship looks like, whether that's with a friend, with your mum, with your dad, whatever. So that by the time you're dating at whatever age people date these days, at the time you're dating, you've already got a grip on who you are and what you expect.
I mean, I don't think I've ever been taught about conflict, which is something that everybody comes across in their life. And